Well, they say that 3 times is a charm. So this is our third time trying to go live and stream and really deliver the full message to you today. So if you're catching us and you were trying to catch us again earlier, thank you for your patience. But I also believe in trying to deliver the most value that I possibly can. For those of you who aren't aware of maybe who I am or some of the work that I do, my name is Jessica Rice. I'm the founder of Jessica Rice Coaching. I am a legacy leadership and brand strategist. I work with Fortune 500 leaders from Uber to Airbnb to Lockheed Martin, helping them to craft their executive brands so that they can be ready for that next chapter, whatever that looks like for them. So today we're going to dive in a little bit more on what are some of the questions that you might be asking, whether you are an executive, maybe you're in middle management, or maybe you're already in the C-level. What you can do to propel yourself forward to that next level. Now, when we're creating an executive brand, it's a little bit different than what I see out there in the marketplace in terms of creating or crafting a resume or even a perfect LinkedIn. And a lot of times we think about creating an executive brand or a personal brand, and we start to think about logos or websites, or even we start to think about personal branding in the sense of how we show up on LinkedIn and posting and content creation. Well, that might be true to a very small extent, but the thing that we're going to be talking about today goes a little bit deeper and is a little bit more geared for executive brands that are wanting to move into consultancies, advisories, fractional roles, executive board roles, things that are going to leave a legacy and an impact for you. So there's 5 questions that I think every executive leader needs to ask themselves when they're thinking about how they're going to craft that executive brand that's going to move the needle forward for them. And do they even have the awareness around how they're showing up already? The first question that I want you to consider is, what is it that you want to be known for? What are you really deeply passionate about? What do you enjoy doing in your role? What do you enjoy doing within your industry? What sparks excitement for you? What lights your fire in terms of the work that you do and the legacy that you want to leave behind? The next question is, how do you convey your expertise? How do you convey what you're passionate about? How do you communicate that so that other people understand? This goes into your leadership value proposition, how you communicate effectively, and how you're really positioning yourself as an authority inside of your industry. The third question is, how do people refer you? How are they referring to you, and who are they referring you to? How do they speak about you, and what do they think about when your name comes up? The fourth question is, what actions am I taking to take charge of my trajectory? So many times we leave our trajectory to our company to take care of, or just a natural progression. Sometimes we even lose track of where it is that we're even heading. So what are the things that you're doing? What are the activities, the actions that you're taking to start taking back control so that you have the reins on your career? And the final question is, what are processes or systems, what are playbooks or frameworks that you have developed over the course of your career that are your unique intellectual property? This is the thing that you can start to extract or extrapolate in terms of what you can monetize, how you develop your leadership value proposition, how you start to present yourself as a trusted advisor, an expert, a consultant, someone who would be hired as someone who can come in and provide advice. So start to think about these questions. We'll dive into that a bit more and really think for yourself. Are you touching on each of these areas when you're starting to craft or think about your executive brand, your executive presence, and how you're conveying this to the external world? Because if we're relying internally on our company to fulfill our legacy, with the changes in the market, with all of the things that we're experiencing, that we're facing, we're leaving a lot to chance. And we don't really want that, because when we're thinking about what that next chapter looks like, maybe you're thinking about moving into a higher level role. Maybe you're thinking about executive board leadership. Maybe you're looking into fractional roles. Maybe you're considering, what time freedom and flexibility do you want to start to create in your life? Because maybe you don't want to take on more, but you want to be strategic about what you do take on and still leverage the expertise that you have gained throughout your career and really leave an impact. So let's dive into that a little bit more so that we can really think about what are strategic ways that you can start to move forward in developing a really compelling executive brand. So again, when we're thinking about this, I want you to think about how you're creating clarity for yourself so that you are positioning yourself for more opportunities. This is you developing your brand portfolio, a foundation for yourself. It's not just one move. It's not making a transition from one role to the other. Think of it as creating a system and a structure for yourself to open up doors of possibility. So really thinking about that big picture. We're going to be covering a lot more of this, but brand clarity, it's not about being polished. It's not having this really pretty resume or a fancy LinkedIn. It's about creating an ecosystem for yourself, something that builds trust, establishes credibility, helps you to propel yourself forward without necessarily having to become an entire content creator or do things that you don't naturally enjoy doing for the most part. And so we're going to walk through 5 parts of this. Today's focus, I want you to consider how you're creating clarity for your brand. I want you to consider how you're not just creating a pretty resume, a pretty LinkedIn for yourself, but how you're truly creating a foundation for your brand, creating an ecosystem, and what I consider to be a brand portfolio that opens up avenues for you to have greater possibilities. You're not looking at just one transition, one stream of income. You're looking at multiple ways that you can position yourself as an expert in your industry so that you're building upon your legacy. So let's dive into that a little bit more. First of all, we have to really consider why executive branding truly matters, because being good at your job these days it's not enough. And 82% of decision makers say that they are more likely to trust executives who have an online presence than those who remain hidden behind the curtains. They want to know you, they want to like you, they want to trust you. So you have to start to think about how you're positioning yourself to be more public. This doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go live every week or that you have to do some of the things that other thought leaders or content creators are going out and doing. But what you do need to do is start making your opinions, your ideas, your voice heard and known. This is your professional currency. This is your insurance policy. In this fluctuating market, we don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next. Nothing is guaranteed. And so what we want to create is a safety net for ourselves. We want to create multiple bounce pads. I like to think of it this way, so that when you are considering what your next move is, you have multiple things going for you, not just one. We're not putting all of our eggs into one basket. And honestly, having a brand isn't about self-promotion. It's about how we serve others and really considering how we're making an impact, how we're serving others at a greater level, how we're moving the needle forward, not just for ourselves and our own lives, but how we can truly make a difference. Because when we feel like we're making a difference, when we feel like we're making an impact, when there's meaning in the work that we're doing, it shows. And we show up differently, we show up better, we're excited, and we can then help other people to achieve things that maybe we've already learned in our career. So really consider how you're serving and how you're helping and how you're leaving behind something that you're proud of. So, the executive market has been shifting quite rapidly. There is a higher turnover of C-suite level roles. We're seeing an increase in fractional roles. They are projected to grow over 35% by 2026. We're also seeing that 68% of companies are exploring hiring external advisors and interim leadership to stay agile. So consider for yourself, your brand. You might be the face of your brand, but your brand, your consultancy, your advisory, that's what's going to bridge the gap between companies, what they need, and the expertise that only you can provide. And throughout the course of your career, you have learned, you have studied, you have gained new skills. You may have learned the hard way a few different times. This is your opportunity to take all of that knowledge and package it up in a way to help and to serve and to provide for others who are not in a position to maybe hire you full time. And this gives you the time, freedom, flexibility so that you can start crafting the life that you want to lead. Maybe you have multiple companies that you're advising for. So really consider how, you can start to bridge this gap and what this can look like for you. Don't be afraid to paint a picture of what your life could look like, because so many times we just shut that down because we're too afraid to be disappointed. But rather than that, start to think about how you can deliberately start crafting a future for yourself. So I liken this to I call this the Powerhouse growth engine, because we have to have 4 parts in order to start growing a successful personal brand. We need to have presence, we need to have a platform, we need to position ourselves, and we need to create partnerships. So if we're looking at presence isn't just how we look or how we're fully perceived, but it's really how not only we own what we bring, but how we also create clarity around what we bring. So that when we're speaking and we're communicating and we're conveying the value that we bring, other people get it, they understand. How you start to position yourself. Again, how is your leadership, your value proposition differentiated between or among others? There are going to be multiple advisors, but only you uniquely bring the experiences that you've had throughout your career. So how are you positioning yourself? How are you talking about that? How are you explaining the things that you've learned, the lessons learned, and the ways that you uniquely approach challenges and solve problems so that you can help others? How are you developing a platform for yourself? You need to go where the people that you're wanting to reach are hanging out. They might be inside of leadership groups. They might be inside of executive programs. They might be elsewhere. Maybe they're on LinkedIn. But really start to ask and to query and to figure out, where are these people hanging out? And that's where networking really comes into play. Your network is your net worth. We've all heard this, but I really want you to consider, who are those key relationships that you have, that you trust, and that you can build upon? Your key relationships are not going to be your customers, they're not going to be your clients, they're going to be people who refer you to potential other customers or clients. They're going to be people who speak highly of you or sing your praises. They're going to be people that open up other doors of possibility that you alone maybe couldn't. And then start to consider for yourself, how am I opening up more doors? How am I reaching out in greater ways? How am I networking on my own? And for many of us, we don't really relish this idea of networking. We don't really relish this idea of reaching out maybe to people that we don't know. But if we're considering how we put ourselves out there, sometimes the only way that we can make ourselves more visible is to do it ourselves. And to give you a little bit of insight here too, when we start to craft our brand and then we're reaching out to people that we've never met before, we've just met, we have a greater ability to determine how our brand is consumed, how they're relating to our brand. If we're only relying on close relationships, colleagues, friends, sometimes there's a bit of bias and heuristics that come into play where they may not even see us in the direction that we're wanting to go. And so there's a bit of a game there sometimes. And so maybe looking at networking in a different way, it's a way to reinvent yourself and to position yourself differently than maybe even others see you. How you define your leadership brand. I want you to think about your legacy. This is not just the work that you're doing today, but it's how you're shaping your future and your industry and the teams around you and the impact that you're making, so that when you look back, you feel proud. You feel proud, you feel like you took control, you feel like you moved your life deliberately in a direction that you wanted it to go. How many of us can sit there and say that we've done that? How often do our careers start to take a life of their own and we're just along for the ride? This is really your opportunity to get back into the driver's seat of your career and start deciding that direction that you are moving your vehicle. Where are you driving to? And how fast? And where are you going? And all of the things. What vehicle are you going to be in? So when you're asking yourself that, what do you want to be known for? And who benefits? Who benefits from your leadership? Remember, it's not just about you, it's about who you serve. And when we can take ourselves out of that equation a little bit, then we can start to get excited. We're connecting our why, our purpose, back to this effort and the work that we're doing to grow. Most leaders that I'm working with, they struggle with connecting themselves. And so when they're feeling like they have to prove themselves, that's when imposterism starts to come into play. That's when we start to have self-doubt. That's when we deprioritize the activities around brand building for ourselves because we don't place it as high as maybe other work that we're doing for our companies, other tasks, other priorities. But remember, this is the long game. You're playing the long game here, and you don't have time to speed this up later down the road. You have to start now. And when you're starting to lay a foundation now, you're laying a foundation so that in a year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever that looks like, you have the ability to pivot. And you want to be able to start creating pivot points for yourself. And you ultimately have the power to determine how fast or how slow you go. So really get clear on what your leadership value proposition is. This is where your IP meets impact. Consider what you've gained, what are those skills, and how do you uniquely solve challenges, solve problems for other people, for other companies, based on what you've learned. This is how you start to package up your knowledge and present it in such a way where someone would be willing to hire you, to pay extra money for you to come in as an advisor. This is a repeatable methodology. It's your thought leadership from a transformational lens. And so ask yourself, here's a few questions. What results do I help create repeatedly? How do I think differently than others in my space? What do people consistently seek me out for? And when you can start to answer these questions for yourself, then you are defining for yourself, you're creating clarity, you're beginning to understand what your brand is, what you represent, how to position that, how to package it, how to communicate it clearly. Sometimes we get lost in industry jargon that our potential clients don't understand, and we have to make sure that we are speaking their language. If they don't understand some of the jargon or the industry related terms that we're using, or we get really heavy in acronyms potentially, we can lose our audience, and we don't want to do that. So you want to start to consider how you're speaking to them, not at them. So consider, what is your visibility ecosystem? I want you to audit your visibility ecosystem. What does this mean? This is creating your digital footprint. This is your LinkedIn, your articles, your press. What's your relationship presence? What's your networks? How are they? How are they growing? Who's in them? How is your reputation? What speaking opportunities are you giving? Or what's your communication style? Do you understand how you're positioning yourself for these key areas of visibility? This way you can start to open up additional doors and additional opportunities for revenue. Maybe you do start getting paid to speak. Maybe you decide to write a book. Consider how you can be a guest post, a guest writer on different platforms, whatever that looks like for you. I want you to start to consider, what are all of the possibilities in ways that you can start to show up and create visibility and create credibility for yourself. And then consider how you're taking these and you're expanding upon your opportunities. So you're not just positioning yourself, for that next level role. You're positioning yourself for vast roles, vast opportunities, board positions, advisory, higher level things that maybe you've thought about, but you didn't fully consider for yourself. So advisory boards, strategic partnerships, media features, curated opportunities. These don't just flow from clarity, they are everything, and they don't just come from hustling harder. Sometimes we have this misnomer that we don't have enough time to do these activities. And a big portion of the work that I do when I'm working with clients is helping them to understand they do have the time. It's about being strategic with their time. It's about being intentional with their time. How do they take micro actions in their day to consistently work on their brand without it impacting all of the other things that they've got going on? You're busy, you're a leader, you have other responsibilities and priorities that you're taking care of. But so is this. And you have to put the priority for yourself and your brand up there just as high as everything else. So your brand is a living asset. This is something that consistently is evolving, it's consistently changing, it's not static. And so you're going to have to consistently be working on how you're reassessing, how you're reevaluating, how you are refining your communication, how you show up, days when maybe things don't go the way that you thought that they should, ways that you're reaching out and learning from your mistake. It takes an incredible amount of tenacity and persistence and a growth mindset to start pushing yourself forward. But you already have it, because you wouldn't have made it this far in your career if you didn't. It's just a pivot. Sometimes it's easier to represent another company. It's easier to sell for another company than it is to do it for ourselves, which is why when I'm teaching about brand strategy, I am a big proponent of not only you're the face of the brand, but you're not the whole brand. Your brand is an ecosystem. It's greater than you. It's potential future employees whom you hire. It's potential future clients who hire you. It's your customers. It's the people that you're interacting with. It's not just about you. And the more that we can remove ourselves, the easier it starts to become, because it's not about proving ourselves. It's about showing up and doing good work. So consistently thinking about how you're showing up online, whether it's your LinkedIn profile, whether it's posting, whether it's developing a website, whatever that looks like, think about how you're continually evolving and changing that. Your signature message. What is it that you want people to truly understand? What is that consistent message that No matter what else happens, that's the thing that stands true for you. That's related to your core values, your mission, your vision, your purpose. This is ultimately the legacy that you're wanting to create. And then what's your visibility plan? How are you structuring these activities? Are you going and scheduling podcast interviews? Are you doing live panel discussions? Are you guest posting? Start considering what is a strategic roadmap for yourself. There's an excellent book called The 12-Week Year. I highly recommend it if you're not sure how to start planning systems for yourself. I'm also working with clients that we use a platform called Goalster to help them micro task themselves so that they have a roadmap and they're leveraging OKRs and KPIs toward their brand activities. You are running this like a CEO, not like a content creator. So I want you to think about it. Your leadership is a legacy and your brand is the architecture. You don't need to wait for recognition. You just need to build it. And you can shape your voice, and you can position your value, and you can lead from clarity. Because there's a really amazing quote that I always look at from Rumi, which is, that which you are seeking is seeking you. There are people who are in need of your services. There are companies that are in need of your expertise, but they don't know you exist, and you haven't positioned yourself so that they can hire you. So when you can start to craft your brand, you're fulfilling on a promise that your career has been creating for you all along. So really think about how you can package up your knowledge in a way that's compelling and beneficial to someone else. That's what being an advisor, a trusted advisor, a consultant, a fractional C-level role is all about. So really, what's next? If you haven't registered, register at powerhousesessions.com. The reason I'm asking you to register is because then I can send you the Executive Brand Clarity Guide. And in this guide, which I'll show you, here, in this guide, you can walk through everything that we just discussed. And it's about 15 or so pages. So we're talking about how you can start to position yourself, how you can start to audit the activities that you're doing. You can start to think about your leadership value proposition, what your voice is, your philosophy around things, who your ideal audience is, who's your target market. You can think about your visibility ecosystem, what activities you're doing in there, what's your platform, how are you showing up? And then it also has a 6-month roadmap and then a 30-day kind of accelerator execution plan for you. I really wanted to create something that, many times when we're thinking about how we build a brand, we don't really know where to begin, and we don't know which activity is going to move the needle for us first. And so hopefully this will help to provide some clarity for you. But I would say with building your brand, the biggest thing is to start first considering who you are. Because if you don't know who you are and what you represent and your natural strengths and what you bring to the table, that's your foundation. You are the foundation. And then you're building upon that from there, because now you know how to position that. But if we're not sure what we are trying to represent, then we don't know how to do the rest. We don't know what we're positioning or how we're communicating our value or who to even reach out to. All of these efforts they're like a funnel. They have a strategic value in mind. And so you want to take strategic steps to reach your end goal. So that's what this is here for. If you register at powerhousesessions.com, then this will be sent to you and you can kind of take a look through this. You can start asking yourself questions. The other thing I wanted to mention to you was that when you do, I'm going to invite you, for action takers, I'm going to invite you to a 45-minute brand audit. This is a conversation between you and I. This is where we're talking about all of these things. What is your brand? What are your goals? Where do you feel like you're at currently or presently within your career? When do you ultimately want to start making some bigger moves toward that next chapter? It doesn't have to be right away, but these efforts and these activities, you're starting to lay a foundation now in preparation for when you are ready. So if you're not ready to jump into an advisory right now, that's okay. But you want to start positioning yourself so that when you do, you're ready. So we'll be talking about all of that, and what are some strategic steps that you can start to take that are unique for you, depending on where you're at in your career, what stage, what you're ready for, and what's on your plate already. Many times, those are the big questions that come up. This all sounds well and good, but I really don't know how to approach this. So we'll set that up. It's not a sales call. It's a way to help you feel like you have an action plan for moving forward. Now, if you're really curious how you can work with me and those types of things, there's a lot more information on my website at Jessica Rice Coaching. You can also join our community. We have a community, which is the Powerhouse Legacy Collective. And that one is available to you now. You can go and sign up. It's just a subscription basis. But what it provides is a lot of this information for you so that you can get started today. And it's really easy to join. It's a great community of leaders, executives, business owners, all trying to move the needle forward just like you. And this community is what's able to give you a foundation, but not only that, a support system. Most of the time, we don't prioritize ourselves because we're walking alone. We have zero accountability. If you're looking for accountability, if you're looking for a network that will help to sharpen your sword, to move the needle forward for yourself, then I'm inviting you into the Powerhouse Legacy Collective. You can come to joinplc.com or just go to my website. And it's $67 a month. So this way you have everything you need. There is no bar to entry in terms of creating an executive brand for yourself. And that's what we really wanted to create. So all of this to say, which I have to find my thing. All of this to say, number one, don't be intimidated by creating a brand for yourself. Don't be intimidated by creating a leadership value proposition for yourself. All of this is doable and you can easily start to begin. You simply have to make a decision. You're a decision away from moving forward on creating that next chapter, that next legacy, whatever it is that you're looking to create in your life. And there's people here who want to help you and want to be able to support you, just as you want to be able to make an impact in other people's lives. It's deeply personal. It's deeply important to me. And that's why we wanted to create systems and tools and processes to help you. You don't have to do it alone. And yet, there's so much support. But sometimes doing it alone, there's a lot of moving parts and we just don't know where to begin. And that's where all of these other pieces come into play. So go ahead, register at powerhousesessions.com, get your executive brand clarity guide, set up a call with me. We can talk through your brand and we can just see where you're at, what makes sense for you right now. Thank you for saying yes to yourself and really thinking about, what do I deliberately want to create for my future? And how do I want to be in control of that trajectory, where I'm headed, what that looks like for myself? How do I want to bake in the life that I want to lead while still making an impact in other people's lives as well? All right, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks so much for being with me.